Hello and welcome to the Happiness Is podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness is Egg-Shaped. And that's right, I'm excited because today I actually feel quite honoured. This is somebody that I spoke to many moons ago. We had a long chat on the phone. Love his energy, love his enthusiasm, love his purpose that I think he's probably found in life. Was willing to give me a fair bit of his own story, and it made me think, and that's always a good conversation. We've been exchanging messages for a while, and finally we have been able to pin down a time where we're both free and got the chance to have a chat. You all know Looseheadz, the charity. We're all well aware of the posts. They are very cool. The merchandise, the kit is very cool, but it all has a far greater purpose. Looseheadz are doing amazing things using this game that we love of rugby to make the world a better place. And who better to chat to than one of the founders, the man himself, Mr. Rob Shotton. How are you, sir?
Hello, Bruce. What an introduction that was. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been a while since we had that first conversation, and I apologise that it's taken so long to come on the podcast. But finally I'm here, and we'll have a good chat. But thank you for having me.
Please do not apologise. You are a ridiculously busy man. You make me look lazy. I love it. And you are now full time Looseheadz.
Yeah, so 2 months into sort of going full time. We had been at tipping point for sort of well over a year, so it's quite nice. We call it a big scary leap, but it's not been as scary as first anticipated. But we owe it to our followership. We've sort of built up Looseheadz over the last 5 years. It was our 5th birthday 4 weeks ago now, and we've built up a bit of a community that believe in what we do, and we need to give it back to them. We owe it to them now to sort of give it a full crack and undivided attention.
It is huge. I mean, it's really well known, and the posts have become really iconic. That was obviously a deliberate move, but I mean, how simple is it? Whose idea was that? Who's claiming that one?
Yeah, I can't claim that one. It was Dave. So there's three of us. It's me, my dad, Mark, and Dave, a friend of ours. And yeah, the post I'm wearing now, wearing the post with pride, is what we talk about. The other thing that we've been speaking about recently as well, it's probably worth mentioning on this call, because we said to ourselves, we said we need to make more of it. But the posts are actually an L and a H for Looseheadz as well. So yeah, I can't take any credit for that. It was all Dave, the genius.
Dave the genius. That's got to be his sign off now. Dave the genius. So it started with the three of you, but there's a fair old tale to getting to this point. Are you able to take us through that led to the birth of Looseheadz?
Yeah, of course. So, like I said before, 5 years ago is where it all started. It was a conversation at the end of a bar. All good rugby stories start in the bar, don't they? And this one does as well. So, yeah, it was the three of us watching the Lions tour of New Zealand, talking about our rugby stories, our rugby journeys, as you do. But more importantly, it was about the people that we'd met along the way. We'd all had mates that had what we described back then as a bit of a life wobble, and we felt that we couldn't do anything positive for those mates other than that typical bloke thing and say, do you fancy another beer, mate? Which just doesn't help. It paints over the cracks. And that impotence drove us to form what is now Looseheadz. It was a germ of an idea back then. We didn't really know where we were going. And again, being typical blokes, we spent probably around about a year and a half not doing a lot. But the conversation at the end of the bar it didn't go away. It kept coming back up. People that we knew, friends, family, but more importantly, probably the people that we didn't know, sort of saying, look, you're onto something quite special here. Using rugby, as you and I both know this, and people listening to this will know that rugby is that sport that has the togetherness, the camaraderie, the clubhouse feel. You walk into any clubhouse in the world, you've instantly got 40 new mates. Using that special community to do something positive within the mental health space. So that's where we started. We wanted to be good Samaritans and not bad Samaritans. We didn't want to cross on the other side of the road. And that's where we started. We didn't get into this you mentioned the clothing before. None of us have a background in clothing. We didn't get into this to be a clothing company, but we said, we've got a little bit of a community that believe in what we do. Let's get the posts out there, let's get the message out there. And that was sort of the start of it. That was the start of the journey.
Do you feel the post spark some conversations?
I think so. I think when I've spoken to people, I think rugby people will sort of see it in the street or see it on, various different players that we've had wearing it and just sort of say, what is that? And want to find out a little bit more. And hopefully people do then click on, because it is more than just post on a t-shirt. The whole mission is to place a mental health lead into every rugby club in the world. Originally, we were saying it was a UK focused mission, but we realised quite quickly that, well, one, mental health doesn't stop at the borders, and two, we had quite a lot of people sort of get in touch from the rugby loving English speaking nations, Australia, New Zealand, USA, South Africa, and sort of want to, they wanted a bit of it. They wanted to be a part of it. So I think it all started with the posts. People see the posts and they want to find out more, hopefully. So yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm working in a boarding school, and quite a lot of the boys will have a Looseheadz t-shirt or a Looseheadz sweatshirt, and I always make the point of comment to them, do they know what it is? While I want them to have a cool sweatshirt or cool t-shirt, that's great, but I always say to them, do you know what that is? And I said, oh, I know the guy from Looseheadz. Do you know why that started? So it is quite an interesting one. I think it is a conversation starter. So once you've had that chat on the end of the bar, and it took you a year and a half, how does it work? How do you give birth to something like this?
I think it was very much sort of crawl, walk, sprint. That's sort of one of our values. It was a big, steep learning curve for us. It still is. Mental health, mental fitness. But you know what? Rugby, like I said it before, we're dealing with a sport that has macho characters in it. But if they can come off the field and say it's okay not to be okay, then that really does start to drive conversations. And when we first started this, we realized two things. Because we aren't experts, we can't get insecure. So what we do is we work within what we call the Looseheadz square, which is prevent, promote, educate, signpost. So there are 4 key pillars. That's sort of what we live and breathe. We also realized that, shock horror, nobody wants to talk about mental health 24/7. It just, there's such a stigma attached to it. So what we try and do is we use rugby as that vehicle to drive, open up the conversation, but also we change the dialogue to put a bit of a positive spin on it, and we talk about mental fitness quite a lot. We all go to the gym to keep fit, physically fit. What can we do to work on our mind and keep mentally fit? And everything that we do, we try and keep it fun, engaging, and we promote it in bite-sized chunks. But I think it's using rugby as that way of opening up the whole conversation.
Have you and Dave and Mark improved your own mental fitness, and has this been a learning experience for the 3 of you as well?
I think so. Yeah, 100%. I think it helps our mental health. One of the 5 ways to well-being is give, and hopefully we're being good Samaritans, and by giving we get a little bit of a warm fuzzy feeling. I've never really been in a dark place, I wouldn't say. I've had my brushes with mental health. Probably one of those big moments is when I went to university for the first time, moved away from home, and sort of I did struggle a little bit, but never really been in a dark place. But when I started Looseheadz, I realized how little I was doing for, one, my own mental health, but also just checking in with mates. I think it's really important. And one of our partners, Talk Club, they have this wonderful thing where they ask people, how are you? How are you out of 10? And instead of how are you, which just sort of gets brushed aside with a I'm fine, yeah, good today, mate, you. How are you out of 10 gives that person a chance to just, one, have a bit of a think about what they are, and then answer it in a different way rather than just saying, I'm fine. I'm an 8 today because I've enjoyed the weather and blah, 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 blah. I've taken my dog out for a walk. We do have one rule with that, though, is that because everyone in the world will say a 7, because 7 is the one number that you just sort of say, oh, he's not too low and he's not too high, so he must be all right. So we have a rule where if you pick, or Talk Club have a rule, but we've adopted it, where if you pick a 7, you're either a 6.9 or a 7.1. But 100%, it's definitely sort of opened my mind. to talk more about mental health, mental fitness, especially within my circles, my friendship groups, my support networks. But yeah, 100%. And I think checking in on mates, I do a lot more of that than I used to, for sure.
I mean, your passion comes through just the way you're speaking, the way it rolls off your tongue. Now that you've got that awareness, have you found that that's had a nice ripple effect, or the people around you, taking that in and checking in on their circle of mates? Have you got some good stories about that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 100%. We get messages. We're blown away really by the support that we get from the community that we've built, the rugby family. We talk about that quite a lot. I know you do on Twitter. But we've had a couple of pinch yourself moments. Some that have just hit us right in between the eyes. One story, and he won't mind me saying this, but one guy got in touch with us just after lockdown, so when people were getting back into playing rugby, and he approached us on Instagram, and he just said, "Hi guys, you don't know me, but I quit rugby. Anxiety got the better of me, but your ideas, your concepts, Looseheadz posts, just Looseheadz community has made me feel a little bit special and part of something bigger than myself. So to remind me that it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to feel down sometimes." He got a Looseheadz tattoo next to his watch strap, and the Looseheadz post, and he said, "Thank you guys." And 2 weeks later, his girlfriend messaged us and said, "You don't realise the impact you've had. You've saved his life." And I think that like I said, it was a pinch yourself moment. It was sort of one of those moments where we just went, we're actually helping people, we're supporting people, and we need to do more of this, which is the whole reason that we've gone full time in the last couple of months, is because of stories like that. It's incredible. We just got to keep doing more of it.
And I mean, that is incredible, and those are amazing stories. The thing I find that same but different, like I do this podcast and then away it goes. I don't see any immediate impact of it. If I speak in a room, I get the laugh or the tumbleweed instantly. Whereas when I do this, I don't know where people are listening to it, if they're listening at all. A lot of the work you're doing, you're never actually seeing the impact of it unless you get a nice story like that. There must be now a need or a desire from you to get out and press the flesh and see what's going on and see how clubs are living those values that you're talking about.
Yeah, 100%. It is one of the weird things about what we do, because we don't know, because we're talking about mental fitness and we're trying to give people tips, advice on how to improve their mental fitness. We'll never really know if we've helped anyone unless they tell us. But that'll never stop us. If we can help just one person, the reality is it's all been worth it. We win a little bit, but the reality is it's not about winning, is it? It's about changing people's lives for the better. But yeah, I think, like you said there, one of the big targets, one of the goals that we sort of have now, is to get out and see how much impact we are having at clubs. So we work with 500 rugby clubs, just over 500 rugby clubs around the world. 400 of those are UK based, and 100 sort of dotted around the world, mostly in America, but sort of dotted around Malta, Singapore, Hong Kong, Portugal, Uruguay. Crazy. But I think we've sort of two of our most engaging clubs, Sidmouth and Chester. So we're going to be doing a bit of content with them in the next few months to just sort of go in and say, how has Looseheadz impacted you? And hopefully we get a few more success stories. But it is difficult, because sometimes, we do get days where we're like pulling our hair out going, is what we're doing working? But when we get messages like that, it is 100% all worth it. Like I said, if we can save one person, it's all worth it.
Yeah, I love the passion you talk about. Now, I love rugby clubs, which anybody who's followed me for any length of time will know that I love rugby clubs. To me, they have that sense of belonging that we were talking a little bit about before we hit record. There is a difficulty now, though, because rugby clubs are not necessarily open as often as they were. It's a struggle to get people to stick around, and I'm really keen to see what content you're able to generate from these clubs that are engaging. How much will those stories that they tell help you get into more clubs? Is there a bit of a referral system happening?
There hopefully there will be. So what we're working on at the moment is building a bit of an online community hub for the Looseheadz. So the mental health lead that we're putting into every rugby club, we're calling that a Loosehead. So what we're working on at the moment is a bit of a network of Looseheads. There won't be as well. The other thing to mention there is, you'll know this because you said you're a fan of rugby clubs, but rugby clubs are generally disjointed places. That's what makes them so great. But we have any old club. You've got the first team, the second team, the women's teams, the minis and juniors. So it is quite important to have maybe 3 or 4 different Looseheads across all areas of the club. So what we're trying to do in the background, and hopefully as we go into the new season, we can sort of launch it quite quickly. But building sort of an online community hub for the Looseheads to share ideas, knowledge, what's working, what isn't working with each other, and that we hope will just benefit everyone in the rugby community, in our sort of Looseheads community. So that's something that's sort of going on in the background. Hopefully we can share knowledge, and it all comes back to that same goal, isn't it? It's if we can just help one person, it doesn't matter if it's at Wilmslow, our club, or if it's at your club, Bruce. If we're helping that one person, we're saving that one person, it's all worth it.
So here's a rugby club. We want to get involved with Looseheads. What happens? Does someone go to the committee and say, I want to be the Loosehead, let's get in touch? Or do the club say, right, folks, we want to get... how are they engaging with you? What's the sort of process for them to go about doing that?
Yeah, so every club's different. Some committees are a little bit reluctant, I guess, to sort of, what committees are like at rugby clubs, but
not a chance. Never in any club I've ever been in.
Never in any club. Yeah, it's a constant battle with some clubs, but that's absolutely fine. It's just the way rugby is. But what happens is a club will get in touch, whether it's a willing parent, a first team coach, a physio, someone on the committee. They get in touch with us. We send them the welcome pack that explains a little bit more about what Looseheads is and what I've just explained there. It'll then go into detail. We've got a 10-component toolkit. So I'll just run through a little bit about what that toolkit looks like. So we've got mental health training, so an introduction into what mental health is, which is a positive thing, mental ill health and how to spot signs in your teammates, and how to create kind of cultures at your rugby club. So we expect is probably the wrong word. We sort of give that for the Looseheads to sort of undertake the training. We've done that with Mental Health Foundation. It spits out a CPD UK accredited certificate. So that's sort of the first step to sort of give you that education and understanding. Just whilst on that, it's probably important to say that Loosehead isn't expected to know all the answers. That's key. Couple of other things in the toolkit. We work with a company called GoVox, fantastic partner of ours. They're a wellbeing check-in platform. So what that does is it sends out a communication to rugby club members each month, 10 non-intrusive questions. It takes 5-10 minutes to complete, and it'll spit out any red flags or any concerns. So that Loosehead will know who they need to talk to at the end of training if they've got 5 or 10 minutes. Talk Club, I mentioned it before. It says what it is on the tin. Another great partner of ours, but they want to set up a talking club alongside every rugby club that we're working with, and it all starts with how are you out of 10, and hopefully when you leave that talking club, you're a higher number than what you walked in as. We want to get out and do events. We've also just announced 4 weeks ago, on our just before our 5th birthday, we announced a major milestone of ours, which is, I mentioned it before, that because we aren't experts, we can't get into the cure space, but we do get a lot of messages from partner clubs and across social media, people who need help, and because we're not experts, we can't offer that advice. We're just not qualified to do so. So we've now launched a text service in collaboration with Shout. So, if you text the number, you can get, an operator to speak to you within a couple of minutes. So that's the toolkit. Essentially, the toolkit acts as a bit of a menu for clubs. Not everything will work for every rugby club, but we hope that some things will allow clubs to normalise conversations, promote positive mental fitness, and ultimately tackle the stigma, which is essentially what we're all about.
Again, I love it. Now, there's the obvious partners of the rugby clubs, but I mean, you've already mentioned there three pretty significant organisations. Because you're signposting, you're working with a huge number of other partners. There's then, looking at the real logistics, you've got people who are having to supply you with stuff, whether that's merchandise or so. There's a huge logistical operation going on here to provide the service that you are putting together. Is that a challenge for you?
Yeah, it is a challenge, but it's Dave's challenge, and Dave the genius again. I try and get involved in it, and Dave just tells me to go away. So, and it's the same for Mark as well. I mean, he actually doesn't even ask to get involved. Dave just completely runs it. But yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, especially at the moment with all the challenges that there's. I think every clothing brand will say exactly the same thing, that they're struggling at the moment because of various different factors. One, it's the summer. We're not talking about rugby as much as usual. We've got prices for everything going up. People aren't going to buy a t-shirt, but if it's for something that's a bit of a good cause, then hopefully people will still get behind it. But yeah, it brings its own challenges for sure. But just on the partnership side of things, so I've talked about a couple of those within the toolkit, but we're also working with Premiership Rugby. So we've worked with them for the last couple of years. We're now going to be doing a lot more with them in the upcoming season. So hopefully we're going to be having a Loosehead announced at each one of the 13 Premiership Rugby clubs. So that's a really big, positive message for us, and we can sort of reach those clubs and start spreading the message. We're also working with, during the month of May, it was Mental Fitness Month over in the MLR in the States. We partnered up with them throughout the month, and we're going to be working with them on sort of a long-term partnership moving forward as well. So Premiership Rugby, MLR, and a couple of other big conversations in the background going on as well. A next big step for us as well is that Looseheadz can't be anything without a bit of funding, so we are looking for a sort of a corporate sponsor. So most of our time in the last few weeks has been taken up by various different calls and meetings. Some very good positive meetings going on at the moment, but we're on a bit of a mission to find a partner to join us on the journey and just get involved and be a part of this. It's something that's not going away. So be a part of this whole mission alongside us.
You're a busy boy. You're a busy. It sounds to me like you're going to be racking up some air miles too, being the employee of Looseheadz. A little trip here, a little trip there.
I hope so. Looseheadz tour, maybe.
Get on the side of the plane, get the poster side of a plane.
That's the dream.
When we want things into rugby clubs, there is still a need to sell it to them. And the way you're doing that, using ambassadors and having the Premiership, if it's good enough for the Premiership, then hopefully it's good enough for us. You've got Shaun Edwards involved. I mean, if ever there was a symbol of that, I think you used the phrase macho before. I mean, Shaun Edwards, just gave everything, angry looking. He's a defense coach. He's bringing steel to France, all that kind of thing. For him to be associated with you and with the posts and tackling the stigma, to me, that's an absolute masterstroke. Did he take much convincing? Was he all in? How did that come about?
Yeah, I think we needed a big, scary-looking bloke to be the patron of our foundation. You hit the nail on the head there, but no convincing at all, because he's just a true rugby bloke, and he completely got it when we asked him. So essentially, my dad, Mark, played with Shaun at schoolboy level. He was the captain and Sean was fly half, and my dad stopped him taking a kick. The guy who then took the kick missed the kick, and they lost the game. And my dad had always said, down the years, I used to play with Shaun Edwards. He's a good mate of mine. And my mum and dad went up to Murrayfield actually to watch Wales versus Scotland when Shaun Edwards was the coach, and they were on the way back down, driving back to Cheshire, and on the way back they stopped for a Burger King or whatever, and Shaun Edwards was there getting a Burger King as well, and my mum said, "You have to go and prove to me that he is a mate of yours and you did play with him." So my dad went up and he sort of plucked up the courage to go and ask him. And it was just at the very first, Looseheadz was probably 3-4 months old. And he walked up to him and he said, "Hi, I'm Mark. We used to play together." And Shaun Edwards just looked at him and went, "Right, nice one." Walked off. And my mum just sort of went, "Right, so you know him then?" And 5 minutes later, Shaun Edwards walked back and goes, "You stopped me taking that kick." I'd have got that kick. And they sat down, they had a coffee, they had a bit of a chat. If you've worn the same colours and all that, rugby's that special game. But they exchanged numbers, and we asked him, "Do you want to get involved in Looseheadz?" And he like I said before, no convincing at all. Again, it's if you've worn the same colours, you're friends for life. And he was actually on the way to see his dad, who was ill at the time. That's why he was driving back without the team. So I think there was something in there that made him sort of think about his mental health. And he's been ace. He's that sort of figurehead, isn't he? That just sort of a big name in rugby that people will listen to, and it's great to have him on board. It's just a shame he's over in France, so we can't do as much content with him as we'd like.
Yeah, he's as I say, I think it's a masterstroke. It's brilliant to hear such a personal story that brings him to that point, and part of that rugby family that we know and love. So you then have, you've got Premiership players wearing the posts. They're on your social media. That grabs kids, I think. If not your clubs, I think kids will look at it and go, right, if it's okay for him. Now, probably Shaun Edwards, when he was at his pomp as a player, he would probably struggle to tell you of any teammate or anyone he knew that had mental health. Whereas I would imagine now we can probably all sit here and go, my mate, or I knew him, or he, or now we've all got a story to tell. Part of that, you must, part of what you're doing is bringing that to the fore. People are now sharing these stories. We are beginning to tackle the stigma. Still a long way to go.
Yeah, for sure. I think, the conversation wouldn't have happened in a changing room 20, 30 years ago. It just wouldn't have happened. I know that me personally, I don't think I even heard the term mental health until probably late teens. And that just goes to show how much how much we didn't talk about it. And now it's coming into the forefront. We are talking about it. That's our job. Our job is to talk about mental health, talk about mental fitness, change that dialogue. But I think slowly but surely we are breaking down that stigma and getting people wearing the posts, and just coming out and talking. For example, a Joe Marler coming out and telling his story. It just normalizes the conversation. It just allows, you said it there, but younger people, if we can start that conversation earlier, then hopefully the next generation will be, it'll be a normal conversation to have. I think back in the day, we need it basically. We need mental health to be a normal conversation, as like breaking a leg is, and you go to a physio, or on the way back on your recovery, you come into that recovery stage. And I think we need to get to this point where mental health is spoken about in the same breath as physical health. We are getting there, but we want to use, inviting players and people, rugby players, not just elite players and our ambassadors, but people in the grassroots game as well, to come out and just use our platform and speak about your story if you're willing to do so and you're comfortable to do so, because it'll help a lot of people.
Have your ambassadors commented on the impact it's had on them, or impacted them, like you're saying that you now check in on your mates maybe more regularly? Have you found that your ambassadors are benefiting from their involvement?
Yeah, 100%. Even a video that we posted the other day, it was Brad Shields. He got in touch. He had the infamous Brad Shields beard, and he said he's going to shave it off. He wanted a new start. He had a bit of an injury. He wasn't being himself, and he wanted to do it for a mental health charity. And that's when he found us. And his learning curve. He'll say this himself, but his learning curve has been like us when we first started this. It's a steep learning curve. And he, in that video, he just said, I didn't really know that much about mental health until I got involved in Looseheadz, and now he's an ambassador and he's checking in on his mates. He's producing content for us like that, where it just gets people thinking. But yeah, 100%. I think we've got a whole host of stories like that with ambassadors that, that some of them in the last couple of weeks as well. I think it was what I was asking them to do a few bits around us sort of turning 5, so the 5th birthday, and a couple of them sort of just not publicly just messaged me and just said, love what you're doing, really appreciate it, and it's made me a better person by being involved in Looseheadz. And that, like, wow, absolutely amazing. Like, these people are role models, they're heroes in my eyes, and they're sort of telling me that it's incredible to see. So yeah, it's really nice.
So, you've done so much. You've got these partnerships going. The tech service is now up and running. There's a huge amount to getting people involved in things, and you've got your social rugby program. How's that going?
It's not off the ground yet.
Okay.
We've been talking about it for quite some time, but now we're full time. We've got a bit more time to focus on this, and that social rugby, for those people that are listening in, social rugby isn't really a sexy name for it, so we're trying to think of a sexy name for it, which is hopefully it could be something around Friday Night Light, so LITE, so it's touch rugby. But the main reason for that social rugby concept is, so with 3 different categories, it's people that are 40, 45 and above. They have given up rugby, they've retired from rugby, but they don't have that excuse to go down to the rugby club anymore. And it's not about the rugby. If it was, you may as well pack up and leave. It's about the social connection. It's about meeting people. It's about checking in on your mates. And it's about just having a bit of a laugh and doing something with your mates. The second category is people that are my age. I don't play rugby. Why don't I play rugby? I don't know. I gave up a few years ago, and I don't have a clue why. It's probably because I just got a little bit busy and didn't feel like I had enough time to go Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, repeat. But this social rugby is a way of getting those people back into playing rugby. Showing them what they're missing. And it comes back to that social connection, and playing with your mates. And the third one is, with everything that we do at Looseheadz, it is for everyone. And this angle is the women's, everything, women that like rugby that have never given it a go, probably because they look at it and go, I don't want to do contact sport, I don't want to be tackled, I don't want to play rugby. This gives them that soft introduction into rugby. So those 3 different categories, get them all down to a central location and have a bit of fun. Play rugby for half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. It doesn't really matter. It's about checking in on your mates. It's about asking those questions. It's about talking to people. It's about the social connection. But it's a concept that we're working on at the moment, in the background. One of the many things that we're working on. But yeah, hopefully, as the new season kicks off, we can get that up and running.
Yeah, I love it, and I know people that are playing walking football and walking netball and walking rugby, and like you say, they're not finishing it by telling you about the try they scored, about what they're telling you about the laugh they had, or the person they saw, or the memory that it triggered, and it's a brilliant thing. You've got so much going on. You're 5 years old. have a look into that Looseheadz crystal ball. 5 years time, what are Looseheadz up to in 5 years time?
Oh, what a question! What a question!
You've got your big sponsor, your big sort of corporate partner. You've got somebody in every rugby club, but you'll be busier than ever, I would imagine, in 5 years' time.
Yeah, I think it's more of what we're doing now. We're doing a lot of good stuff at the moment. It's just continuing to do that and accelerating it. So it's having Looseheadz, so those mental health leads in all of the sort of the big rugby loving nations across Europe, across the world. It's having Looseheadz advocates going out to deliver conversations to rugby clubs, it's schools, universities. We're going to be focusing a lot more on different mental health training modules. So at the moment, that introduction to mental health is up there and available right now. We're actually currently working on a youth. I'd love to speak to you off air about this, Bruce, but a youth mental health module. So it's all about body image, body positivity, social media, resilience, rejection, barriers to support, all these things that 10 to 18-year-olds and that age category face every day. We're currently working on that. So it's building that resource pack so that we can put out to all of the partner clubs that we have on board. Just keep churning out content that helps people and supports people, and just tackling the stigma. More success stories that we spoke about at the start. It all comes back to that conversation at the end of a bar, and we'll never ever lose sight of that if we can help one person. So, more success stories. But yeah, hopefully, like you said at the start, hopefully we'll be redundant because the job will be done. But it's a problem. Unfortunately, it's a problem that's not going away anytime soon. And hopefully we can just change people's lives for the better.
Mate, I just love it. I'm just loving listening to you. So here's one for you. You have to use social media to get your message out. And certainly over the last 2 and a bit years, it's been impossible to do it in any other way. I use social media. I get a lot from it. I use it socially. I talk to kids about that a lot, that I use social media to be social. You could be a Premiership player who doesn't play well, and all of a sudden there's a whole load of tweets where you're being added and your things are in your DMs. But you can also be a kid looking at an image thinking, I'm not that and I want to be, and you go about it in the wrong way. There must be times where you're scrolling through social media and you wince at what you're seeing, thinking, good grief, these people need some Looseheadz. How do you get around that? I mean, we want to just click our fingers and make things better. We understand that can't happen. How do you get your head and heart straight when you see things like that and you can't just click your fingers?
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Social media, like you say, there is such a positive space and a negative space at the same time, and it's a tricky one. I think what we try and say is, use social media in small doses, but also don't believe, listen, take to heart everything that you see on social media. I think that's the other thing. The other side of it is the people that are hurling out abuse on social media. We had a chat with Mo Hunt on our podcast when we had it in lockdown, and she said something really interesting actually, which was we need to focus in on those people who are hurling abuse as well, because they're the people who need help as well. So the thing that I wanted to say there and finish that off with is just be kind. Be kind. It's just, I was about to say it's not hard. It isn't hard, but it's just one of those things. If we can all be a little bit kinder, the world will be a better place. But use social media in small doses. And if something is there that you don't like, you don't need to look at it, and you don't need to believe it. You don't need to look at it.
Yeah, I tell the boys here, I show them the Joe Marler interview about mental health. I quite often use that at the beginning, not the whole documentary, but I use the clip where he talks about it. But I also talked to him about social media, and I've blocked Donald Trump, Katie Hopkins, Piers Morgan. I said they could not care that Bruce Aitchison has blocked them, but for my mental health, that's why I've blocked them, because I
Yeah.
don't need to see what they're putting into the world. And they need to hear stories, don't they? Not just kids, people that are in that headspace and their heart feels the way it does. They need to hear stories of people, I suppose, being real, talking it through, talking about their own mental health. Something, I don't know if you saw it, but I posted something a while ago because someone said to me, maybe people need to see that you're not always happy. And I hadn't really thought of that. And I posted something, and some of the messages that I got privately, a bit like you're saying, tears to my eyes, knocked my socks off. Storytelling's a huge part of what you're doing, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Storytelling and story doing. We've spoken a lot about what that looks like, and I think where we're at, we need to. There's quite a lot of people. We spoke about this at the start of the podcast, but there's a lot of people that know what Looseheadz is because of this. The posts on the t-shirt. But do they know? Can we bridge that gap between that? Who they know? They know who Looseheadz are. They know what Looseheadz is. But do they know how to get involved? And do they know what we do? And that's a big part of what we're doing at the moment. We're trying to story tell and get out there and do it. Do a bit more in that sense. But 100%, it is storytelling. It's normalizing the conversation. It's tackling the stigma by normalizing the conversation. It's all of those things.
The rainbow posts I thought were just majestic. I mean, what a fabulous move. How's that been received? Was that a chat at the end of the bar? Was that just a logical, no, we just got to do this? How did the rainbow posts happen?
Yeah, I think I said it before, but everything that we do at Looseheadz, just like rugby's a game for everyone, Looseheadz is for everyone, and it should be for everyone. And we have a lot of partner clubs that LGBTQ plus clubs, and we did it a while back with just us having a bit of a conversation and just saying we could just change our post. We did it on social media, and quite a lot of people do it on social media. They change their logo to the rainbow, the rainbow colours, and we just sort of like the look of the post, and we said, do you know what? Let's support the LGBTQ plus community by getting this out there and sort of start again. It was all about starting conversations. So, funnily enough, the t-shirts are probably one of our most popular t-shirts as well. As and it just goes to show that rugby and rugby families and rugby communities get behind people. We deal a lot with quite a lot of those, like I said before, those clubs. We're going to be doing a lot more with those clubs in the next few weeks and months as well. So that's one to keep an eye out for. But yeah, we're for absolutely everyone. We're as inclusive as possible.
Yeah, amen, brother. Because that's been a challenge just ever so recently, and it's really impacted a lot of mental health from people that were already struggling, but it's also brought it to the fore for others. I copped it on social media, and then I was at the Sevens at the Commonwealth Games, and two people came up to me and said thank you for what I'd posted, and then I was walking along and I pretty much got assaulted by an England fan, but I'd helped her wife with something on TikTok which I still don't understand, but there were two amazing little moments, and I'd copped it from various on social media, taking a real shoeing from some people, and people left and didn't follow Happiness Egg Shaped, which I've like that go for it. Like I'm pretty easy with that, but I just loved that. I just thought it shouldn't be brave, but it almost felt like it was brave. But like you've said, you are for everyone. Everyone has mental health. We should all be able to welcome people into rugby.
Yeah.
With that then said, you've got your little band of Looseheadz that are sending out those hopefully meaningful and purposeful ripples. What's come back to you from those people that you've put in as Looseheads, or from those clubs, that's made you think, do you know what, this has got legs, that we can go to those places you've mentioned?
I think it's all about sharing knowledge. Like we said before, we've actually learned a lot from the Looseheads at clubs. So one of the things we're working on at the moment, that youth mental health module, wasn't our idea. It was a few clubs that approached us and said, this is what we need. So it's all grouping together as one, as that rugby community, like we say, to support and help others and each other. So I think we've had numerous success stories. One of those, which was obviously the tattoo. We've had a whole host of those, which show that we're sort of on the right path. But Looseheads is not about us. It's not about us at all. It's about us as in the wider sense of us. It's about the rugby community. So if anybody we're three very easygoing guys that, we love rugby. We love helping people. We love supporting people. But we can't do it on our own. So it's really nice that people have actually now approached us and said, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Can you do this? That's where we see the most, that in itself is a success story, because it shows that we're just the platform. We're just three guys that are hopefully very, very, very passionate about it. And we're all in it together.
It's so good. It sounds to me like when you wake up in the morning, you're looking forward to what's coming. You're excited by the challenges that you face, knowing that it's having the impact. Working for Looseheads a pretty good gig?
I think so. It is the best. I'd said when I had just obviously left my job 2 months ago, but I was doing that job and Looseheads at the same time, and Looseheads is by far the best thing I do. How can't it be? Rugby is my sport, and I'm helping people along the way. So, yeah, 100%. It's the best thing I do.
I love it. Now, you've got heaps of ambassadors doing good things. They're engaging. They're wearing the posts. I'm going to put you massively on the spot here, my man.
Oh, I don't like being put on the spot.
Pick an ambassador that you would love to see wear the posts. I'm giving you Dan Carter and Charlotte Caslick as my two.
Yeah, Dan Carter is an interesting one. We've been in touch. Well, we've been in touch with his agent, and he sent back a response from Dan Carter, who actually responded to say he's got his own charity stuff going on. He's got his own commercial deals, so he can't get involved. But he said he's heard of Looseheads and to keep up the great work. So that in itself was a really nice message, and it was we have pinch yourself moments sort of all the time, and that was a big one. Ruby Tui of the Blackburns, yes. I think she would be up there as an ambassador choice. I've been in touch with her agent, really just want to get her on board. She's very vocal about mental health, mental fitness. So
yeah,
this is a call to get Ruby Tui on board as an ambassador. I think I've been to New Zealand, and I love the All Blacks, and I love New Zealand as a country. So just any of the All Blacks.
Yeah, nice one. I love it. Well dealt with. Yeah, Ruby Tui is just gold, isn't she? And I just love that she's willing to have those conversations. I think you could throw her anything and she'd have a conversation with you about it, and she'll talk about herself. And she's, that sense of belonging in those teams is so strong, isn't it? That you would like to think they're looking after each other, but it'd be great if they could don the posts.
Yeah, just wear a t-shirt. That's fine. It's not. Yeah. I used to like colours as well in New Zealand.
Exactly, yeah. I think you're really plugging it. If we could get this to Ruby Tui, then deal's done. I'll get Sean to clip this up, and we'll just start bombarding her on all platforms. I'll get Jill Douglas to speak to her. Jill Douglas did that interview with her at the Olympics. That was just awesome. Two great ladies on the screen.
Yeah.
Rob, I love speaking to you. I'm so glad that we finally nailed down the time. You are making the world a better place, my man. You and your band of Looseheadz. It's such a positive thing. I absolutely love it. I did give you a little primer at the beginning. So as we get to the end of the pod, Rob, I need you to finish a sentence for me. So for you, happiness is?
Looseheadz. I'd get told off if I didn't say that.
Nailed it. He's become quite the corporate beast, hasn't he? I love it. Rob, listen, please keep in touch. We spoke about this before we hit record, that there's a huge number of people we've connected with through the screen or on the phone, and I hope at some point soon we're able to maybe stand at the end of a bar and chew the fat and come up with a great idea like you and your guys did with Looseheadz.
Bruce, thank you. I've really enjoyed this chat, and I think just before we click the end of the call, I just wanted to say thank you to you, because you were one of the first supporters of Looseheadz as well, and you know, happiness is egg-shaped across Twitter. You shared our posts, you shared our ideas, you shared what we were all about. So without people like you, we wouldn't be where we are today. So thank you. It really means a lot, and I've enjoyed this chat. Thank you.
You're a ridiculous sweetheart. You know that. You're good for my mental health, my man. Good to see you. Thank you. I'll speak to you soon.
Good to see you. Take care.
You gotta love people that are making the world a better place for others. And Rob, Dave and Mark came up with an idea at the end of a bar. Remember all those bar conversations you had where you had a good idea? Well, those guys made it happen. So join them. If you're listening in Clubland, it's your club, a Looseheadz club. Get involved, please. Get somebody signed up. Get involved. Let's start the conversation. Let's tackle the stigma and wear the posts. It's great stash. And if Sean Edwards is wearing it, it's got to be good. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, you can catch us on Apple, Acast, and Spotify. You can watch on YouTube and Facebook. Tell your friends, leave us a review, and spread the word. Let's get that conversation going. We want everyone to have good mental fitness, and let's look after each other because we're all in this together. Until next time, my name is Bruce Aitchison from the Happiness Is podcast, and my happiness is egg-shaped. I can do the corporate stuff too. All the